Hey, happy Wednesday. We're really lucky today to have a veteran of the music industry, I would say, and a multifaceted person, Eric Alper. How are you doing today, Eric?
I'm good, man. Does veteran also mean that I'm old?
No, maybe
Okay.
maybe a little mature, but I
No, definitely not that. I'm gonna go with old rather than mature. Although
yeah,
my wife would tend to agree with that.
yeah, maybe immature, but I don't like to use the word old. Like when I look at, I've been talking to Richard Flohill a lot lately, and he's 91 and he's still going. He's still
Still
traveling.
going, man. He's like the Rolling Stones of publicists. He's gonna go until he can't go no more on this planet, and it's a good goal to have for somebody like me. That's like, okay, cool. As long as we
And
keep up with
true,
the technology and still love music, then why not?
for sure. And he's got his Substack that he's doing, where you can sample his writings and that. So it's really cool. So I'd like to just go back in your LinkedIn. It says you've been in the industry for 30 years. So just for a couple of minutes, let us know how you got started in the music industry.
Yeah, I'm one of those guys that have always loved music but can't play a note. You stick me in a studio, I wouldn't know what to do. You put an instrument in my hand and I'm useless. I just have no musical talent whatsoever. But I was always interested, even as a kid, in stories about music. I remember when I was 8 years old watching the movie American Hot Wax that starred, actors, but and it told the story of the DJ Alan Freed, who was one of the first people to play rock and roll music in America. But up there on the real big screen, along with the actors, with the real life Jerry Lee Lewis and Chuck Berry. And for an 8-year-old kid that grew up with AM radio, from hearing from everything from Johnny Mathis to the Archies to Blondie, whatever was hits, this was a mind blowing thing for me to see, and I wanted to be a part of it. This was like how some people feel about Star Wars or Star Trek or Harry Potter. This completely changed my life forever. So I got a subscription to Billboard magazine when I was a teenager, and along with memorizing the charts like a geek would, it would be reading about the managers and the record labels and the booking agents and what these people do. And I found it all fascinating. So when I went to university, I volunteered at the radio station at York University, and I also started writing for the campus newspapers just to get some writing experience. And also, I got to meet publicists. They were the ones that would pitch people like me on coming down to this show and doing a review, or writing a record review about this album, and meeting other people in the industry at these shows. And publicity was something that I really felt that I loved more than anything else. So when I graduated, I started a publicity company and did that for a couple of years and sucked at it. I was horrible at it. Back then, you kind of made your mistakes with independent bands that didn't really deserve to have a publicist, but I was so cheap that everybody could afford me. I knew what the other publicists charged, and I charged like 90% less than that because I just wanted to get my feet wet in my experience. And I just really wanted to do publicity better than anybody else, cheaper than anybody else, and faster than anybody else that was out there. And that led to me working for a company called Koch. And Koch was the largest independent distributor of music and video in North America. And that's where I got to work artists like Ringo Starr and Bob Geldof and Guar and the Wiggles and Ani DeFranco and Midge Ure and so many artists. That I still love and I still work with to this day, and been doing that ever since. Started at Koch April the 4th, 2000, and been doing it ever since.
Well, yeah, I didn't see Koch on your LinkedIn. I didn't notice that one there, but that's very cool. That's very cool. So, on your LinkedIn and your kind of description, um, it says you're a publicist, which we obviously know about, and but you're also a host of a show on Sirius XM. Tell us about that.
a long time ago, when I used to take artists to the various radio stations and TV stations, I was just a publicist. I would just stay behind the scenes and take the artist to Canada AM or Sirius XM or Global Morning and so forth, and then just stay in the background. And one day, the producer for Canada AM said, "Why don't you come on and talk about the latest box sets of the season, because it was coming up on Christmas time?" I said, no. Like, why would anybody want to listen to me talk about anything? I'm a publicist. And she said, no. Like, you'd be really good. You're positive. You're enthusiastic. Go for it. So I called up all the people I knew in the industry, and I said, I kind of got this segment. Do you want to submit and do something, and I'll show it? And went well, and they kept calling me back. And then with Sirius XM, they asked if I wanted to do my own show, simply because I was there all the time. I was bringing people almost on a daily basis, because they had so many opportunities at the network for independent artists, and still do. And they asked if I wanted to do a show based on watching me on Canada AM and other places. And I again said no. Like, nobody wants to hear me talk. And they said, no, just come on. Bring in all your friends, bring in the musicians, bring in the industry, kind of like what you and I are doing right now, and just talk to them. You don't have to go too deep. Don't go too inside baseball too much. Just talk about the thing that you would talk about behind the scenes or backstage. So I said, okay, I'll try it. And I kind of dug doing it. And so I've been doing that ever since. But for me, it was really a matter of walking that very, very fine line when I'm talking about other artists that I don't work with, or other record labels, or happenings in the music industry. There's a really fine line between working in the industry and also kind of being a music commentator, because I don't talk about legal issues. I don't talk about anything negative, because there are people who do that very well. And I'm not a snarky guy, so I don't want to get that artist in more trouble than they are already in, and I don't want my name being branded about in a negative fashion. So I only talk about good things. I only talk about what people are doing, or historical facts, or when somebody passes away. I seem to be one of the first couple of people that they call in order to give like a 4-minute send-off about why this artist is important, and I'm happy and honored to be asked to do these things still to this day.
That's great. So that's your role as music commentator, I guess. And then the last part of your description on LinkedIn is a shameless idealist. So tell us about that part of your
Yeah, that's up to me, the most important part of it, because that's the stuff that gets me up in the morning. Look, being a publicist is it's not for the faint of heart. It sounds great, and it is great. It's a fun job to have, but you have to take rejection and being ignored almost all day and night long. I'll send out pitches, and a good day is if I can get a couple of handfuls of people to respond. So you have to be an idealist. You have to be an optimist, that every day that you wake up is a new day with new opportunity, working with really cool people, and you get to do this for a living. Nobody's forcing me to do this. Nobody is like putting a gun to my head to say you need to do this. I get to do this for a living, and so it's kind of my inner mantra is the shameless idealist. That why not? Why can't this person get in Canadian musician magazine back in the day, or now with you, or Billboard? Like, if it comes with a great story, and great photos and great music, that's really what they're looking for. I get why it's going to be a no, but I'm still absolutely willing to try and fight for the artist. And so that's really where it comes from. Is it's shameless, because you kind of have to be. You have to be an eternal optimist to work, especially in 2025 in the music industry, where there's just a lot of doom and gloom, not only in this industry but everywhere. And I refuse to live in that world. I see it. I understand it. Doesn't mean that I have to wallow in it all.
For sure. And do you that idealism, do you pass that on to your clients? Like, do you inject that in them as well?
I try to, but I gotta be honest, Jim. It's really hard to be an optimist when you're a musician, when you're taking a look at the really, really, really hard work that you do as an artist, being creative, not only on the music side, but the daunting effect of having to post on social media to create official videos and live videos and acoustic videos and lyric videos and slideshows for YouTube, and then make sure that you're already posting that content and more content on social media like Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. And then to do all that, worry about whether or not if you're an artist that needs to be touring, and how to tour in a country like Canada that's so vast with so few places to play in terms of big cities and so few venues that are left that actually have live music. And then you look at the minuscule, for the most part, royalty checks that these artists are getting, because music streaming services are paying on average 0.0004 cents per stream. It's hard to be an optimist long term. I know I'm going to be in this forever. I know it. I'm well past the point of being 18 going, that's what I want to do. And I know I was one of the lucky ones to find it. But in terms of artistry, there's a lot of people who have a full-time job, who are getting married, who are having kids, and they're trying to balance the whole, can I stay in music? Can I survive in music? Can I make enough money to do it? But the fact is that it was always hard. You know, if you weren't being on social media in the 1970s, 80s, 90s, 2000, you were probably trying to scrounge up enough money to pay for a big budget video that much music might not even play, or play even once. And then what do you do? Or, you know, I get the mental health aspect of artists that are struggling right now, but you know, decades before too, these artists were pulling themselves off of the road because it was just tough being on the road with a band or by yourself. There's a lot of loneliness. That's where you had a lot of drug and alcohol abuse problems. So it was always difficult, but I'm seeing more and more artists that are giving it a shot rather than maybe, I know that they're going to be lifers no matter what happens. So I try to give them the optimist vibe of it all, but I know deep down inside it's really super tough just to maintain a musical career for at least a couple of singles. That's why on Spotify, when they reveal something like, you know, more than 90% of all the artists on Spotify don't have more than 2 songs, it's because they kind of give up after, you know, unless you start to go viral overnight, and that's just not, nothing is a guarantee. And I think that the earlier that the artists realize that, the more that they will in fact be an optimist, knowing that they're creating music for them first and then trying to connect with the audience later. I think too many artists are wondering why they're not Billie Eilish within 6 months.
Yeah, it takes a long time, and people are impatient. Years ago, we published a book on Supertramp, and you know, their first really big hit was Breakfast in America. But when we researched the book, we found out they had like 4 albums before that hardly sold anything. But when Breakfast in America came out, the sales on those original albums just went crazy. They all went, and that's the way it works. You get to a certain level, and then the appetite for, you know, people into the stores, and A&M Records just went crazy because they had all of a sudden the fans wanted every single thing they ever recorded. And people don't realize that's what happens, but it's usually 3-4 albums in. You know, it takes a long time.
It was always like that. You know, the very few artists like a Richard Marx, a Tears for Fears, a Lady Gaga, a Bieber. I mean, even with somebody like a Justin Bieber, I mean, he was making videos on YouTube for years before getting noticed. But I think it's easier to have the opinion now of the overnight success when the artists may not realize how much time, energy, and effort and work was put into that one song that they see. They might not have seen the 13 or 15 songs that were on Spotify that suddenly got deleted by the record label once that song became a hit, because they want to give off the impression that it's an overnight success. You know, even somebody like Chappell Roan took almost 10 to 12 years to break with the same songs that are breaking now. So, you know, they may not know that Lorde got signed at 12, but her first album came out when she was 16 or 17. Or Billie Eilish putting out music on SoundCloud for years with her brother Phineas before she actually broke. They don't see sometimes the behind the curtain stuff, and they may not even realize how astonishing some of the budgets are for record labels. Sometimes they're really, really tiny because they want the artist to do all the work first and then they'll sign them, or that they're going to hit the button right away and start to boost the post on TikTok and spend $250,000 making sure that 17, 20, 25 million people hear their first single. So it's the whole Wizard of Oz, don't look behind the Iron Curtain kind of thing, but it was always tough. It was always tough.
For sure. I've always found that it's 10 years is kind of the magic number for a lot of artists. To become, I remember Alana Miles, because her sister used to work for us when we were in Toronto.
Oh, no way.
So we knew Alana used to hang around our office, and it took her a long time to get that, the first hit. It was about 10 years. And, a lot of people, and that's true of any business. Doesn't matter what it is. It takes a long time to cut through all of the resistance and get traction.
And find your team. Look, Bruce Springsteen was told by his record label that, your next album has to break or you will get dropped. And that album became Born to Run. Bob Dylan didn't break until his third or fourth album either. Marvin Gaye took, 2 or 3 years of writing songs for other people before given the chance to do something like that. If you go through, especially now with Wikipedia, and you go through your favorite artists, I think people would be surprised at how many independent releases happened. Radiohead had various releases before they even got signed now, and now record labels, and especially the major labels, are working really, really closely with their publishing division in order to sign, dozens, if not hundreds of artists at the same time, and waiting for somebody to come up with what they think are going to be 3 absolute no-brainer hits, and leaving the other 99 just by the wayside. And maybe those artists who don't get the major label release will go off and do something amazing by themselves or with another label, but they're writing every single day, and not only by themselves, they're writing with other people all the time. So yeah, it does take time.
For sure. What about the importance of playing live to an artist's career?
It all depends on who you are and what kind of an artist you are. During COVID, when everybody was stuck at home, the amount of live concerts that were happening on social media sites went through the roof. And in fact, I was promoting a lot of that stuff in lieu of people actually being able to play live. If you are a 15 to 25-year-old pop artist, chances are your audience doesn't want to go out and wait for you to play at Toronto's Horseshoe Club or at the Georgia, somewhere in Vancouver at the Commodore Ballroom. They have no interest in going out to see live music, but they're happily willing to follow you on social media, listen to your music, buy your merch, and so forth. If you're a blues artist, if you're a folk artist, if you're, classical, then, your audience tends to be a little bit older, so they're used to actually going out and supporting those artists live. But if you're playing rap or hip-hop or R&B or pop music, your audience may not necessarily be the ones that are going out. Generation Z and Generation Alpha are smoking less, they're drinking less, they're going out less, because there's way too much competition out there, everything from Netflix to video games to just sleep. And so that's not the audience that I was growing up with back in the 80s and 90s, when if you wanted to hear something, you either had to wait for it to get on the radio or you went to see the band play live. Now it's not the case. Now everything is at their fingertips. So, playing live, I don't know if it's as important to this generation as it was before.
What about the importance of songwriting? In my mind, it's incredibly important.
Yeah, that has to begin and end with it. And I know that it sounds like a cliche talking about social media and doing all this stuff along with it, but if the song isn't great, if it's not attractive to the ear, if if everything doesn't connect, if the logo and the photos and the video don't connect to the feeling of the song, then the artist is going to be in trouble. But you know, with every new genre, with every blending of the genres, you've got different styles of songwriting that's out there. And, you know, if you and I are talking in the 80s, we're probably saying you have to have an intro, and you have to have a guitar solo, and you have to have a bridge. Well, you go on the Spotify Top 100 new songs, and they're, you know, 99 songs don't have any of that. They get to the verse as quick as possible. They get to the chorus quicker than any other time in music history. There's no solos, and they're not having codas at the end of their song. They're just ending the song with a breath or, you know, a lyric, and then suddenly it stops. And the more that those songs become successful, the more that the people listening to it who then want to go on to become musicians themselves, it's no surprise that those songs are becoming like the old ones too. So it's going to take years and years, if not decades, to get out of this songwriting cycle of what people are hearing now. If you love it, amazing, you're in luck. But if you're older and you don't understand what people are listening to, you're going to have a problem. You can still find your audience more, I think, easily and easier than you can right now. If you play prog rock and you're metal and it's math rock and you make 18-minute songs, great. There's going to be at least 25 million people out there on this planet that love that. You have to go and find them. But if you play 2.5-minute pop songs and you record everything yourself and mix it and master, and you follow what is popular, because you can get it out right now as opposed to 7 months down the road, you may actually have more success in 2025 than ever before.
For sure. I mean, even though there's pessimism, I guess you could call it, the bright side, in my mind anyway, is technology. For one thing, you can record an album at home. You couldn't do that 30 years ago. You can, you know, the technology is amazing when you think of the internet and cell phones, and being able to find an audience is relatively easy because, you know, with the analytics, you can see what countries all your response is coming from. So, you know, social media in itself, a way to communicate with millions of people. You know, when I was playing, which was a long time ago, I mean, we used to mail out a newsletter every and, you know, our fan club would sit there and lick stamps and put them on, and you know, aside from mail and phoning people, I mean, that was your outreach.
Yeah.
Now, it's there's just more that you can do with the technology if you use it properly. Going back to songwriting for a minute, what about the artist being, I find a lot of the artists aren't aware of how they can get paid. They're not aware of how SOCAN works and CMRA and all the other various BMI, ASCAP. Do you find that they're just not aware of all the money that like a lot of them don't know that they can get paid for playing their songs live?
Yeah.
Artists don't even have a clue about that.
Yeah, and also sometimes the artist doesn't know the sheer amount of other ways that they can make money being a musician, whether it's, you know, teaching people theory, or teaching people how to play and being a music teacher, or music sync, or music licenses, or you know, there's so many ways other than just getting and waiting for a check to, you know, from SOCAN or from BMI. What's interesting about what you just said, though, is that we've never been in a time that so much information is so readily available with the hit of a button, but there's so much untruth and lies and alternative facts that are out there that you figure that with the internet being what it is, that everybody would be 10 times smarter in all aspects of life, health, science, math, you know, how to deal with people. But I think we're kind of getting a little bit dumber in some ways. So look, on my website, I post, you know, a blog post about just that very topic, or how to write a press release, or how to find a booking agent, or what booking agents are looking for. And I'm constantly amazed, not that I have to go really, really basic, but to never forget that it's always going to be somebody's first time getting into the music business side of things. And I think the experienced one, the one that have been around for a year, I think they know what SOCAN is and all that stuff. But you know, you, I always have to understand and realize that every day there is somebody that's learning about Green Day for the first time, that's hearing Fleetwood Mac's Rumors for the first time, and learning about copyright for the first time.
For sure. Yeah. So for a upcoming artist, when should they be looking at hiring a publicist? When's the right time?
Yeah, it used to be, when you have a record label and when you have a manager and when you're ready to go across Canada, when you have a great video. And now, I gotta be honest, like, I'm working with artists now with their very first single and they have a lyric video. And when I talk to them, I kind of give them the what the scope of what I'm going to do is out there. I'm going to hit everybody, because you never know when somebody's going to say, "Hey, this isn't great for me being a writer at the Globe and Mail for a feature, but I am going to be doing a story on the success of Spotify for independent brand new artists in about 6 months. So I'm going to keep this handy." You never know when that artist too is going to blow up somewhere down the road and they're going to be keeping stuff. So with me, I'm happy to work with artists that are first starting out, and I'm happy to work with artists that have sold 100 million albums like I have. So I know, again, going back to when I was starting, I know what the other publicists are charging. I know that I'm better than most of them that are out there, just simply because of the contacts and workload and the time that I spend on each artist. And I know that I'm cheaper. So maybe that artist who has one or two singles out wouldn't be able to afford or think about affording a publicist, but then they come to me and it's like, wow, like, it's pretty affordable. And it's like, yeah, because I'm not looking to these independent artists for my mortgage. I'm not looking to them to scam them out of their money and build it in quality over quantity. I just want to make sure that that they're good people, because I love working with good people. The music is kind of secondary to me, because if they're not taking this seriously, or they're not going to be available for email interviews or phone interviews, or that they're not going to answer my emails in a timely manner if I have a question, then I know that they're not really ready for it, and that's okay. Not everybody is, but I'm always happy to work with old and new artists.
Yeah, I think the fact that your rates are reasonable is a big factor, because I
Yeah.
know other publicists charge as well, and some of them may be worth it, but I know some certainly aren't. Is that, all they're gonna do is email a press release out, and that's about it.
Yeah, and look, some of it's, look, I know enough publicists to know that what you're paying for as an artist is really two or three people doing the exact same work that I do by myself.
Right.
There, you've got one person writing the press release, and then you have the other person that actually formats it. Then you have somebody else that's sending it out, then somebody else that's following up. You don't really need that at all. And the only reason why you do that is because the leader of the company, like every business, just doesn't want to do the work that they don't want to do. I like doing it all. So, and I'm good with it. And look, I work 7 days a week. I work 15 hours a day, 16, 17 sometimes. I love it. This is what I do. This is what I love to do. So why not do it? And not charge what other people are charging. Here's the reality of it. If you want to be honest about it, I don't want anybody to be disappointed in what I do. And I think if you're going to pay $10,000 for 3 months worth of work, you're going to be absolutely disappointed in that work, because you think that you're going to get your money back. With what I charge and getting the same thing that they're, if not already more, on a regular basis, you're never going to be unhappy with I charge, because they're going to be like, oh my God, I just made that back in like having one show, or you sold me like 6,000 tickets to my show. Like, it's fine. I'm with you for the whole year. So I think the money aspect is really important to a lot of up and coming artists.
For sure. And I know your 7 day statement is true because I get emails from
All the
Friday
time.
night. You seem to do a lot of catch up on Sundays. I get,
A lot of grunt work.
a lot of, yeah. So that's another question. What about time management? How do you balance everything that you do? A lot of clients at the Sirius show and just all your activities. How do you balance all of that and make sure the wheels don't fall off?
It just is. I have the same 24 hours that Beyonce has, so I'm going to spend my 24 hours wisely. It's also, look, I don't go out very much. I tend to work a lot. I tend to be a homebody. I'm not watching a stupid miniseries on Netflix that takes 9 hours. I'm really spending my time on what I want to, and hanging out with my daughter and taking the dogs out for a walk. Like I'm doing a meeting while I'm taking the dogs out. Like it took me years to figure out how to make sure that everybody was really happy. But it's just you try to use your time in a valuable sense rather than relaxing. I don't want to be alone with my own thoughts. I don't want to sit here and do nothing.
So how do you balance your 7 day work schedule with your family?
Well, my wife has a job that she is here a couple of days a week, and then in the office a couple of days a week. In the beginning, before my daughter was full time at university out of the city, you find the time to talk to them and take them out and go to a ball game and go to a movie and you go to a show. It was I didn't find it difficult at all. I didn't develop a drug problem. I didn't develop an alcohol problem. I didn't figure out that like I was close to being divorced. Like I think we just kind of meshed into our work life. My wife works at night on the computer beside me when we're watching something. So, it's all good. We're just able to make it work.
Well, that's great. And do
I
you
also
ever,
don't have any friends, so that kind of helps.
yeah, they take a lot of time. Any, do you take holidays at all? Or
I take 1 week off in December, and the rest of the time, not really. But even during the holidays, I get up at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning and set up my day on social media, then letting it run and doing the things. But yeah, I'm checking email as much as everybody else. This is not a burden. This is not something that I can say, oh, I wanted to have a job at 5 o'clock and end it and not deal with it. There's some days when I feel like that, but again, like I love to do this, so why not do it at every opportunity you can?
for sure. If you could help independent artists with their to-do list, what would you put at the top of the list for tomorrow morning? The one thing that's kind of generalizing, but what would be the one thing that they should do when they wake up tomorrow morning?
Get amazing photos. I can't stress enough how many things that I have been able to place on behalf of the artist because the photos were great. The photos should line up with the logo, with the music, with the bio, with the website, with your social. But having great photos, I think, is really underappreciated. There's artists where the music is great, and I know I've written a great press release and the bio is okay and it's passable because they really don't have a lot to say maybe at this point, and the photos are awful. They're not high res. They're giving it to me only in black and white and only one of them total, and it's in horizontal. I need 4 photos. I need high res. Give me black and white. Give me color. But give me something that if I wasn't going to hear the music, that the photo was going to tell me a lot about who the artist is. especially in the traditional media world where a great photo can get the front page of the entertainment section of a newspaper, or an extended story in a magazine, or a larger photo on a blog. Photos are, I, I think, so important. I'll give you a really quick example. When I when I first heard Oasis, I heard them on the radio, and I read about them, and people told me about them. And then when I started to read more about them, the photos of Liam and Noel Gallagher lined up perfectly. It had attitude, it was Britain, it was in black and white, some color, they were sneering, they were laughing, they had an image that they wanted to project. They understood, in following the Beatles and the Stones and T-Rex and Bowie, how important the image was to the music. In most cases, people hear about an artist before they even hear the music from that artist. We read about it in a blog. We're attracted by the headline on a blog or on a podcast. Somebody tells you about an artist. The new Radiohead album, the live album, is astonishingly great. And then you listen to it, where somebody talks about it to you, and then you hear it as a recommendation. But to see what people are talking about, I think that's got to be right up there on the list of maybe things that artists should be taking care of, but sometimes really don't.
For sure. I mean, since the introduction of the iPhone, unfortunately, and an iPhone can take a pretty decent photo, but you're not a photographer.
Yeah.
They get their friend Herb that lives next door to do their band photos, but I find with artists, they're cheaping out on that. Like, hire a pro, and it doesn't even cost that much. Photographers, especially in the music industry, there's a lot of
Yeah.
photographers that will do it for next to nothing because they want their photos out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And just do something. The cliche, and I'm sure that you've seen enough of it, of bands standing in front of a brick wall or on railroad tracks, right? I've been in offices in music magazines, especially in the US, where they have a wall of photos of 8x10s of the artist looking the exact same, and they're all different bands. And do something. You've got two hands, 2 feet most of the time. Do something with it. Bring a chair, bring an object, look the other way, be different, wear different clothes, look the same. Do something, but have that image though. Make people go, this is cool. I want to listen to what they have to say.
For sure. So I'm going to wrap it up there today. And Eric, I really appreciate your time. And as I said before, I'm going to make sure your contact information is in the notes. But having said that, if they Google you, it's not exactly hard to find you. So if somebody's interested in your services or in the media or for any other reason want to contact you, I'm sure they will. And I know that tomorrow when I get up, there's going to be
At least 2 press releases in there.
at least a couple of things.
I know you're working.
Oh, for sure. Well, they don't take long to get back to you. So thanks a lot, and I know
Thanks, Jim. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. Thank you for so many. Look, even if you never covered any of the artists, you know that I've long admired the fact that you have supported so many artists in this industry, so many technical companies, so many instrument manufacturers in what you do. You are such a valuable part of the reason why Canada punches well above their weight for decades. And thank you for what you do and your staff, and it's incredible.
Great. Well, thank you as well. Take care.
Thanks, Jim. We'll talk soon.